Hello everyone. Today I will be teaching the last yoga class in the adaptive yoga series, and today's class is going to be focused on blocks. Blocks are, in my opinion, like the most common yoga prop that you will see in a class, and I think that everyone should have a set of blocks nearby their mat when they choose to practice. But you'll notice in classes most of the time people choose not to use blocks. And I think a lot of times what holds us back from the support we could use, or at least having it available, is a sense of ego. Maybe that's too bold of a statement to make, but that's the sense that I get. And so I'm going to teach this class at a gentle pace. It's going to be a slower flow. We're going to do some poses that are challenging. We're going to do a couple variations of poses that are deeper than what we would normally do without blocks. And my hope is to show you what is possible with blocks. We talk a lot about how blocks bring the floor closer to you, and that's very true, but also they help a lot with alignment. And when we say that something helps with alignment, or we talk about alignment, it's not just about making sure that the pose looks nice or looks the way it's supposed to. When you are well aligned, you're helping your body get the health out of the pose that it can, and also helping it make the changes internally that will allow it to get into that well-aligned pose in the future. And the goal, or not goal, but the hope being that eventually you may not need to use the block because you have trained your body and it's made the changes internally to be able to do the pose without the block. But honestly, it doesn't matter. If you continue to use it, it's totally fine. So I would say, whether you're an experienced yogi or you're brand new, blocks are very helpful, and just because you have them nearby doesn't mean you have to use them. Better to have them and not use them than to not have them and realize you want them. So please grab a couple of yoga blocks. I think in a lot of cases you could probably use large books for what we're going to do. I'm really going to encourage you, if you have developed a home practice, or for many of us, even going to the studio, props are not available. These foam blocks are not expensive. You can get them off of Amazon. If you want to use something that's a little more eco-friendly, you could go for a slightly higher price point, but there's all sorts of options available, and I think it's worthwhile investing in some good blocks. And it's really not that deep of an investment. Alright, so let's get started today in child's pose, and we're going to use a block in our child's pose. Actually, I'm going to show you two different ways to use a block with child's pose. The first way, which is my favorite, actually I'll show you my least favorite first. So one way to increase the shoulder stretch in child's pose is, as you take your child's pose, bring your blocks underneath your hands. And a quick disclaimer, when I talk about blocks, I'll talk about the low setting, the medium setting, and the high setting, so it's pretty self-explanatory. So we're going to set them on the low setting, and bring the blocks underneath the hands as you stretch the fingertips forward. So if you do that, notice how that changes the sensation as you elevate the arms. It tends to create a nice natural lengthening of the shoulder blades to the fingertips. Okay, so that's one way to use the blocks. You can also bring a block underneath your forehead. This is a little more supported of a version of child's pose, and also I love to bring a block underneath my heels. And this is a great example of how blocks train your body. I needed a block on top of my heels when I first started doing child's pose, or else it was just very uncomfortable. And it was about a year ago I realized it's not just that I can choose not to have the block. I really unless I'm doing restorative child's pose, I don't use it anymore. It's just over time my hips have relaxed into the child's pose. So give it a try and find what experiences happen for you. So maybe today, because it's challenging for me, I'll keep my hands on top of the blocks.
There you go. All right. Settle into your child's pose. Feel your breath. Breathe length into the body wherever you can. Breathe in and out through the nose. Deepen your breath, particularly focusing on your exhale. And a couple more breaths just like that. And as you inhale, slowly make our way up to into a tabletop position. So here's a place where you can choose to bring blocks underneath your hands. This is an example of the floor coming up closer to you. I would say not everyone needs to do this by any means. It's really just about your body type. And you'll notice, for me, bringing blocks under my hands actually elevates my shoulders above my hips, and so it's not really comfortable for me. If, however, you have shorter arms, this can be a great way to kind of even everything out. I'm actually going to set my blocks aside now that I've shown you. Just come back to tabletop. You want to have as much of a flat back as you can in tabletop. Take a moment and just come into your body by going through motions like swaying hips and shoulders, or taking some circles with the hips. Keep looseness in your shoulders and in your elbows as you rotate. And rotate the opposite way. We'll come back to tabletop position, and I think from here, let's see. Oh, yeah, from here, let's come into a seated position. I want to show you a really fantastic way to use the blocks for seated. So as we take seated meditations, we're going to come to an easy seat. Sitting on a block becomes almost like it's kind of a hard meditation cushion that's really good for elevating the hips. And when we elevate the hips, the spine naturally stacks over them. We're less likely to find ourselves hunching forward because we've got to use a lot of core strength to hold ourselves upright. So if you ever feel like your back starts to hurt when you're in seated meditation, block underneath the hips is fantastic. So find your easy seat, seated on the lowest position of the block. Bring your hands to your legs and close your eyes and feel your breath. Resolve today to just enjoy the creativity of the practice. If you find yourself doing some things maybe you haven't done before. Again, so these poses they're not poses you're going to see in a beginner's class. But to be using the blocks for support, you might try something new. And some of these poses are ones that are going to be slow. If you're experienced, this may be a slower practice than you're used to or want. And try to challenge yourself to stay with it. And just find what is available to you there. Maybe from that thought arises an inspiration or an intention for your practice. What do you really hope to find here. Inhale, let's reach the hands up to the sky. Stretch the fingertips high, relax the shoulder blades away from the ears, and exhale, sweep the hands down, back to your sides. Inhale, reach your hands to the sky, maybe look up at them. Exhale, sweep your hands down, maybe tilt your chin in towards your chest. Inhale, hands sweep up. And exhale, hands sweep down. Inhale, sweep the hands up. Exhale, sweep the hands down. One more time, inhale, reach your hands to the sky. And as you exhale, bring your hands together in front of your heart. Press your palms together firmly against each other. And plant your right hand to the earth. Inhale, reach your left hand to the sky. Exhale, take a bend to the right. So you can see how being on the block for these gentle motions is still okay. We don't want to do anything too crazy while we're sitting on a block, but we're just doing spine awakening. It's usually okay to sit on your block for all that. Just be mindful. As you inhale, come back up. Exhale, plant your left hand to the earth. Inhale, reach your right hand to the sky. Exhale, bend to the left. Continue to root both hips against your block. Inhale back to center. Exhale, twist to the right. Inhale, lengthen your spine. Exhale, twist a little more. So if you were sitting on a block, there's a chance you might want to bring a block underneath the hand that's on the earth. So it's kind of a far reach to you. Inhale, come back to center. Bring my block with me. Exhale, twist to the left. Inhale, lengthen your spine. And exhale, twist a little more deeply. Inhale, come back to center. Bring your hands to your legs. We'll do seated cat and cow before we proceed forward. Inhale, bring your belly forward. Rotate your hips slightly back and shoulders roll back. Exhale, round your spine. Tuck your pelvis and chin and shoulders in. Inhale, stretch and lengthen forward. Exhale, curve and round back. Keep going with your breath. Coming back to center and do a few very simple ribcage circles. Just be careful as you're sitting on your block. And pause and go the opposite way. Okay, begin to roll forward over the knees. So we're going to come to a down dog using the blocks underneath the hands. This is really this is a fantastic, almost life hack of yoga. Blocks under the hands and down dog is great for, I'd say, two particular things that you may be sensing as a yoga student. One thing you may notice in your down dog is that you get very tired. It's a long way to have to get the hands all the way down to the floor. Elevating, think about it, so if you elevated all the way, it'd be almost as if you were pressing your hands against a wall. We were completely elevated in a downward facing dog. But the blocks elevate slightly, and it's still challenging, but it's not as challenging as getting all the way down, hands and feet on the floor. The other thing it helps with is if you have some difficulty coming into lunges in your downward facing dog. So like we often do three-legged dog and then come to a low lunge, and like if you have trouble getting your foot between your hand and it just feels very awkward for you, create a little more space by bringing your hands on top of blocks. So bring hands on top of blocks about shoulders width. We're going to come from tabletop with the hands on the blocks, and then tuck your toes and lift your hips. And then you don't have to use the low setting. You can use the high setting. And you can pedal out your dog. I don't do this very often. I should do this more often. Like, I'm discovering how this feels in my own body here too. Lengthen your hips high, sink your heels back to the earth. If you're familiar with down dog and you know how it feels in your body, just notice what feels different having hands on blocks. Where do you feel the sensation? You can nod your head yes, shake your head no in your down dog. Alright, so we're going to do a full vinyasa using the blocks. So come forward to a plank pose. Now again, having the hands on blocks, elevating the hands slightly makes this a little less intense. So if you're used to having your knees on the floor, you may choose not to have your knees on the floor today using the blocks, or you may do so. It's up to you. We'll hold plank for a few more breaths. Inhale here. As you exhale, let's shift hips up to the sky, down dog. One more time, inhale, come forward to a plank pose. Then drop to your knees. We're going to set the blocks aside for our cobra pose. Set the blocks aside, then lower all the way to the earth. Let's start out with a sphinx pose. Forearms press down, elbows come underneath shoulders, and the heart comes forward. Gaze down at the hands, or forward if it feels okay. Slowly lower back down to the earth and plant your hands by your lowers, and then as you inhale, lift your chest for a little cobra pose, press into your hands, but also engage the muscles in your back and belly to help support you so not all of your weight collapses into your hands. Broaden across your collarbones. Inhale here. Exhale, lower back down to the earth. Inhale, come up to hands and knees. Now if you would like to, from here, grab your blocks, bring them underneath your hands, and we'll use them for our downward facing dog. Excuse me. Tuck your toes, lift your hips, and we'll find down dog. With the blocks, or you might decide without. You might be like, I've done it, and I don't need it, and that's fine. Just keep them nearby. And as you inhale, come forward to plank pose. And then drop to your knees, set your blocks aside, and lower to your belly. Inhale, cobra pose, a little higher this time if you want to, or you can find an up dog with only hands and feet on the mat. And then as you exhale, we're going to find our way to downward facing dog. Through hands and knees, or you can roll over the feet if you are in up dog. And bend one knee and then the other here. Bring the blocks back. Alright. As you inhale, lift your heels, bend your knees, and as you exhale, walk your feet up towards your hands. And we're going to kind of forward fold and grab your blocks here, and we're going to feel forward fold with the blocks. Usually we drop hands to the earth, and we're going to drop hands to blocks here. Usually we bend the knees here. And notice if you've got your hands on blocks, if there's a little more space in your legs, you might straighten them slightly. Just always keep a little bend in your knees. And then separate your feet a little wider than hips width. Grab opposite elbows and sway from side to side. Release your hands back to your blocks and heel toe your feet underneath your hips. Take a bend in your right knee. Keep your right hand planted to your block. And as you inhale, send your left hand up to the sky. Taking a twist, you can look up at your lifted hands. You can wrap your left arm around your low back if you want to. Plant your left hand to your block and bend your left knee. On an inhale, reach your right hand up to the sky. Stay here, wrap your right arm around your low back. And come back to your forward fold. We're going to inhale and half lift, also a great opportunity in half blocks. If you really want a flat back and you want a 90-degree angle with your body, blocks are helpful and you don't have to bring your hands to your legs. As you exhale, fold forward. One more time, inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, press through your feet, slowly rise. Reach your hands out and up to the sky, press your palms together above your head, and bring your hands to heart center. Take a moment, find your standing mountain pose, root through your feet, activate the legs, long spine, relax shoulders, front of your head lifted. Breathe here. If you had an intention at the beginning of practice, remind yourself of what it is. As you inhale, sweep your hands up to the sky. And you exhale, fold forward. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, we're going to step back to plank pose. And you might use the blocks here, you might choose not to. Take an inhale here. As you exhale, we'll make our way through a vinyasa. Knees can be up or down. Inhale, cobra or up dog. And exhale, downward facing dog. Alright, so now's when we're going to do the three-legged dog to low lunge. You might experiment with using your blocks in this and see how it feels. So you inhale, reach your right foot up to the sky for three-legged dog. And then as you exhale, we're going to step the foot between the hands. And notice how much more space that creates. And then drop your back knee down. Keep your blocks where they are. We're going to keep them underneath the hands for the slow lunge. So notice how this also creates a little more space for the spine and the belly. And if you don't feel it, try taking the blocks away and lower down. So for many of us, due to arm length, it feels like we collapse onto the front leg as we reach hands to the floor. So unless you're very comfortable staying on the fingertips or your body doesn't do that, blocks underneath the hands is a great way to avoid it. Now we have the opportunity to bring the gaze forward without feeling like we have to crunch the neck. Take some good deep breaths because the belly is a little more free. Alright, if you'd like to come up in your lunge, interlace your fingers on top of your front thigh. Or sweep your hands up to the sky. Okay, gaze forward, strong bend into your front knee, lunge into your left leg. Take an inhale here. And as you exhale, we're going to find half split using the blocks. Grab your blocks. I'm going to put them on the medium setting. And then extend your right leg straight. Come onto the heel of your right foot. And then maybe fold forward. And this is another one where it can be difficult to get the hands to reach the floor. Blocks just make it more possible. Breathe here. Inhale, come back to your low lunge. Keep your left hand planted to a block on the inside of your foot. And as you inhale, reach your right hand to the sky for low lunge twist. Inhale here. Exhale. Bring both of your hands inside your right foot and then heel toe your foot closer to the long edge of your mat to find lizard pose. We're going to use the block and lizard pose in a few different ways. Start by bringing your hands to your block. It can be on any setting. I'm doing the low setting. You may stay here, or you've heard, you can drop to your forearms in lizard. If I'm going to do that, I always bring my hands to a block. So the secret is, if you feel that your weight is collapsing into your outer arm, so in this case your left arm, if you come to your forearms, then you want to either come back up onto the hands or use a block. It's the body trying to overcompensate for going into so much depth. Well, the foot's on the right foot as well. Okay, slowly make your way back to hands and knees position. Grab your blocks if you want to use them for your down dog. And then we're going to make our way to a downward facing dog. If you want to take a vinyasa here, you can take a vinyasa here. Okay, I'm going to use my blocks. And from your down dog, inhale, float your left heel up to the sky. Exhale, softly step it between your hands. And drop the back knee down, finding a low lunge. I often find when I use blocks and down dog, it's much easier to softly step the foot forward. And there's much more of a clunk when I don't have blocks under my hands. Right. Keep the spine long, blocks on any setting. If you'd like to go up higher into an upright position and interlace your fingers on top of your thigh. Maybe reach your hands up to the sky if you'd like. And inhale here. Exhale, half split. Hands grab your blocks. Extend your left leg straight. Come onto the heel. As you bring your hands closer towards your back knee, you can fold forward. As you inhale, lift back up, come to your low lunge. Keep your right hand planted to a block inside your front foot, and then inhale, sweep your left hand up to the sky for low lunge twist. Lengthen through the left fingertips, maybe look up at that hand if you want. Come back to center. And bring both hands inside your left foot and heel toe your foot towards the long edge of your mat. Finding lizard pose. Again, remember your options. If you want to drop to your forearms, maybe try the block on a low or medium setting and see if that changes your experience. Remember, we don't want the weight collapsing onto the right arm. And try to bring even weight to both arms. Heel toe the foot back between the hands. This time we're going to tuck the back toes, blocks. We're going to step the feet to the front of the mat and a forward fold. Inhale, half lift, and exhale, fold. Bring your feet wide. Nearly as wide as the mat. We're going to come into a squat. But use your block to sit on. So 1 or 2 blocks, honestly. Bring it about where your butt's going to land. And sink your hips low. And try to bring your butt in contact with your block. Again, you can use 2 or 3 blocks. I recommend on the low setting if you're going to stack blocks to help with the squat. And I'm actually going to come down to the medium setting. And once you are settled in, try to bring elbows inside knees and hands to heart. Crown of your head lifted to the sky. You might want to have a second block in front of you if you have it available. It's not necessary. We're going to do a twist here. But first, a few more breaths in our Malasana, our squat. This becomes a much different pose oftentimes when you put the block underneath the hips. Alright, so for our twist, we're going to bring the right hand to the floor, to the block. Inhale, reach your left hand to the sky. Stay here, just like in our twist earlier, you can wrap the left arm around the low back, maybe even hooking it onto the leg, depending on the openness you got today. We'll come back to center. Drop the left hand to the floor, to the block. Inhale, reach your right hand to the sky. Again, opportunity to wrap your arm around the low back. Come back to center. I'm going to plant the hands to the floor. Slowly come back up to forward fold. With blocks under the hands or not. Just keep your blocks nearby. Then we're going to begin to bring weight into the right foot and slowly lift the left heel up to the sky for standing split. Bring the blocks underneath your hands. This is another one where we tend to have the hands on the floor, and this is just an opportunity to bring the floor closer towards you and focus on the sensation of dropping your left hip as you lift from the back of the left leg. And crown of your head lengthens towards the floor. Take an inhale here. And as you exhale, step your left foot to the back of the mat, finding high lunge with hands on your blocks. Keep your left hand planted, and as you inhale, reach your right hand up to the sky. Again, left hand still on a block here. Bring both hands down to your blocks. As you inhale, cartwheel your arms up and open, and turn your body to the side of your mat for Warrior Two. No blocks really necessary here. Just breathe as you gaze over your front fingertips. As you inhale, flip your front palm and reverse your warrior. Left hand to your back leg or wrapped around your low back. Right hand up and over. As you inhale, come back to center. Exhale, side angle. I encourage you to try bringing your hands down to your block on any setting. It can be high, medium, or low. Instead of bringing the forearm on top of the thigh, and then stretch the left arm in line with the ear. As you inhale, come back up to warrior two. Straighten your front knee. Then exhale, reach your right hand out over your leg and drop it down to my triangle pose. Once again, hand to your block on any side. Bring your gaze down to your front foot. We're going to take our block and place it about a foot in front of the toes. Feel free to bend your right knee as you do this. We're going to find our way to a balancing half moon using the block. So press weight into your hand and into your foot. Slowly drag your left foot close into your right and then float it up to the sky. Your left hand may reach high. A little extra balance support. Left hand can come to your hip. Inhale here. Exhale, bend your right knee. Slowly come back to your warrior two. Inhale here. Exhale, cartwheel the hands down. Step back to a plank pose. You can move through a vinyasa if you'd like to. Otherwise, we'll meet up in a downward facing dog. As you inhale in your down dog, lift your heels, bend your knees. Exhale, walk your feet to your hands, and we'll find forward fold, the top of the mat. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold and grab your blocks. Bring weight into your left foot. Lift your right heel up to the sky for standing split. Right hip dropping in line with the left, right toes pointing down to the earth. Long spine as the crown of the head reaches towards the earth. Inhale here. Exhale, step your right foot to the back of the mat. Keep your right hand planted to your block inside your front foot, then reach your left hand up to the sky, dragonfly twist. Inhale here. Exhale, frame your front foot with your hands. And then we're going to cartwheel the arms up and open to find warrior two on the left side. A few breaths here in our warrior two. Inhale. As you exhale, flip your front palm, reverse your warrior, right hand to back leg, or arm wrapped around your low back. Inhale, come back up to warrior two. Exhale, side angle, hand coming to your block. Right fingertips and left hand in line with each other. Rotate your right hip back. Maybe bring your right arm in line with your ear. Inhale, come back up, warrior two. Straighten your front leg. Exhale, reach your left hand out over your leg and drop it down to your block for triangle pose. Again, right hip, right shoulder rotating a little open. And gaze down at your front foot. Bring your block about a foot in front of your toes on any setting. Maybe bring your right hand to your hip to start out. And then slowly drag your right foot close in toward your left. And then we're going to float it to the sky for balancing half moon. So just like in triangle pose, the right hip is rotating forward. And if you want to, bring your right hand up to the sky. If you want more balance challenge, you can always look up at your lifted hands. I'm not feeling it today. Inhale here. Exhale, bend your standing leg. Come back to warrior two, slowly and mindfully. Inhale here. Exhale, cartwheel your hands down. Step back to plank pose. Inhale. Exhale, make your way to down dog through chaturanga or straight there. Once you're there, take a few breaths in and a few breaths out. Take an inhale, lift your heels, bend your knees. Exhale, step through to a seated position. Grab your block. We're going to sit up on the block one more time. We're going to take a staff pose, and we're going to hold that for a little bit. It's actually a little bit of core work to hold staff pose. So we're going to extend the legs out in front of us. But hips are elevated. So again, we're creating similar sensations as what I was talking about at the beginning of practice, that having the hips elevated helps stack the spine naturally. My socks, cold. All right. Feel rooted into your block. And bring your hands to frame your hips, lengthen your spine, gaze forward. This is all we're going to do. Just breathe here. Focus on the sensations in the spine as you breathe. Notice if you're starting to do this, collapsing. Stay nice and lifted and proud. Okay, a few more breaths. All right. Plant your feet. Lift your hips, come off of the block. We're going to actually come onto our backs. We're going to do a core exercise using the block. That's challenging, but fun. Alright, come onto your back, hold the block in your hands, lift the block straight up to the sky. So we want to have it hands on so that the block is nice and wide. And then lift your legs up to the sky. And we're going to transfer the block to the feet. And lower hands and feet towards the earth. Lift them up towards each other, grab the block. Lower hands and feet. And lift. Transfer block to the feet. Lower. And lift. And continue. Keep going, keep breathing. Just a few more rounds. Let's continue for 5, for 4, for 3, for 2, and 1. Release. Set your block to the side. Hug your knees into your chest. And do a rock from side to side. Breathe here. And slowly come back to center. Plant your feet into the mat. Hips width, knees pointing up to the sky. We're going to set up for a bridge pose, but we're going to grab a block and place it on the low setting between the thighs. And then press it firmly. Feel the engagement in the glutes and in the legs as you press between the legs. It still keeps them hips width. So when we talk about keeping tension between the legs,
In bridge pose, this is what it feels like. It's like there's energy there, but they're not pressing together. So we're gonna keep the block there. Send your arms long, and then press into your arms and feet. Lift your hips and low and mid back, and continue to press between the legs, pressing against the block. Breathe here. One more inhale. And exhale. Slowly lower down. Rest for a moment. We'll do one more bridge pose just like that. Alright, once again, start to engage between the legs. Press through the feet, the arms, shoulders, lift the hips. Breathe here. Again, the engagement is still happening between the legs. And one more inhale. Exhale. Slowly lower down. Remove the block from between your legs and let your knees knock in towards each other. One hand to your belly, one to your heart. Okay, one last bridge pose. This time, we're going to use the block but not between the legs. We're going to do a supported bridge. So set yourself up like you're doing bridge pose. Lift your hips just a little bit and then grab your block and set it at the low back. I recommend the lowest setting or maybe the medium setting. And then rest your hip, low back on top. And just relax here. Press through your feet. Lift your low back and set the block to the side. Bring your feet a little wider than hips width. And windshield wiper your knees from side to side. Begin to hug your knees in towards your chest. Take a rock and roll on the length of your spine a few times. And roll forward over the knees and come into tabletop position. Send your right leg behind you and draw your knee forward by your right wrist, ankle around in the direction of your left wrist. Stretch your left leg behind you. And grab your block and set it underneath your right hip. Supported pigeon pose. You can stay lifted, hands on the earth. And start to fold forward in your pigeon any amount.
to press your palms into the earth if you're folded forward. As you inhale, lift your chest. And slowly make your way back to your tabletop position, setting your block aside. And stretching out your leg if needed in any way that feels good. And come back to tabletop. Inhale, reach your left leg behind you. And exhale, draw your knee forward, set it by your left wrist, and ankle around towards your right wrist. Hips low. And right leg straight behind you. Put a block under your left hip for a little support today. Even if that's not something you usually do. Just give it a try. And then option to stay lifted or to fold forward. Fold it forward. Press your hands into the earth. And lift the crown of your head. And lengthen the front of your body. And we're going to make our way back to hands and knees position. And feel free to move your left leg around in any way that would relieve tension. And then come back to tabletop. Cross your legs, roll over, and make your way onto your back. And hug your knees in towards your chest. Rock from side to side a couple times. And eventually drop your knees to the right. Maybe bring your arms to a T. Or knees down twist. If you ever want more support between the knees, you find an opportunity to use a block and put it between. Sometimes a nice option. As you inhale, bring your knees back to center. As you exhale, drop your knees to the left. As you inhale, come back to center and draw your knees into your chest one more time. Take an inhale, lift your forehead up towards your knees and tighten everything to the center. And as you exhale,
Release to your Shavasana. Heels come to the corners of your mat and toes flat open. Arms alongside your body. And release the limbs down, release the torso. Rest the back of the head. And take a few minutes to rest here in Shavasana. And then we will close our practice. Take some deeper inhales and exhales, maybe silently exhale out your mouth and start to find small movement in the fingers and in the toes. Circle the ankles and the wrists. Move the arms and the legs and maybe take a full stretch. Bring your knees in towards your chest. And rock off to one side. And guide your way up to a seated position. Bring hands to heart center. Thank you for joining me in this practice, making use of blocks. I hope you learned something that will be helpful to you and got a good practice out of it. The light in me recognizes, honors, and bows to the light in every single one of you. Namaste. And thank you so much for joining me in this adaptive series. Whether you're new to yoga or an advanced practitioner, I hope that you found some good things and enjoyed yourself. And next couple classes are going to be more calming-centered classes, and I'll be wrapping up my free yoga for the training. Thank you all for being a part of it. All right. Take care, everybody, until we meet again.